Welcome to the broadcast, friend. My name is Randall Terry. I hope that you will stay with me for this entire program. I want to admit right up front that I'm almost giddy with excitement about Mike Pence being the running mate for Donald Trump, and I'm going to explain why. If you watched yesterday's program, you know that I said in my heart the person who I would like to be the vice president is Newt Gingrich, but I think he's going to pick Pence. I was right. And again, I've told everyone 8-9 months ago that Trump is going to be the nominee and that I believe he is going to be the next president. And I was right on the nominee part, and I still believe he's going to be the president. And I think that him choosing Mike Pence was frankly political genius. Let me explain. Newt Gingrich, I have to take a moment to juxtapose Newt with Mike Pence, all right? I like Newt Gingrich. He's smart, he's aggressive, but he has the persona of being something of a flamethrower. Well, I like flamethrowers. And a flamethrower is who you want as the Secretary of State. You want Newt Gingrich in the Trump cabinet where he can show leadership day by day by day. Teddy Roosevelt once said, I'm sure you remember that before he was president, he was vice president, and he became president because McKinley was assassinated. And Teddy Roosevelt said that the vice presidency was like a warm bucket of spit. He hated it. He actually was thinking about going to law school while he was the vice president because he didn't have anything to do. In other words, the Constitution provides for two basic things that the vice president is supposed to do. Number one, he's the president of the Senate. The vice president of the United States is actually the president of the Senate, and he only can vote if there's a tie. So if there's a vote in the Senate and there's a tie, the vice president gets to cast the tie-breaking vote. The other constitutional responsibility he has is to become the president should the president resign or die while he's in office. That's it. So for a running mate, the time that the vice president candidate gets the most traction and gets the most action and gets the most reaction, it's during the campaign. After the campaign, the only time you hear from the vice president is usually when they step in it. Think Joe Biden. Think Dan Quayle, if you want to go way back. This is why, in my opinion, picking Pence was a stroke of genius. Because on the campaign trail, he will actually be a greater asset to Trump. He's an evangelical. He has had a long history of fighting against homosexual marriage. He's pro-life. He's been married to the same woman for over 30 years. And he's got a very good record in the House of Representatives. He knows people in the House of Representatives. He served there for, I think, 8 years before he became the governor of Indiana. So this is a man who's got governing experience both in the House and as a chief executive, and he's in line for the presidency. He was born in 1959, so he's only 57 years old. He looks a little older than that, I think probably because of his gray hair, but he's only 57 years old. Newt is 73, 16 years the senior of Mike Pence. So this means that Newt's opportunities for the White House are probably gone, but he can still serve the country at some level in Trump's cabinet. Maybe chief of staff, which is, some people argue, the most important job in the country after the presidency. I would like to see Newt be the Secretary of State. That's where my money is going. Bottom line is, this is a stroke of genius from Trump because Mike Pence is really respected both by the right wing of the party and by the establishment because of his demeanor. Even though he's held the line on issues, he doesn't have the reputation and the persona of being a flamethrower. So Trump gets it both ways. He gets somebody on the campaign trail who's a proven conservative, who's an evangelical, and who is respected by the establishment. And then this guy gets to campaign with Trump. If once he's in the VP slot, if Trump wins the presidency, he's in line for the presidency. Pence is. So my hat goes off to Donald Trump. This is going to be so exciting. And when we come back from this break, we're going to take a look at some of the latest polling. Hillary is in a heap of trouble. And I think we need to thank FBI Director Comey for that. I'll be right back. I am going to vote, God willing, I am going to vote for Donald Trump. I make no bones about it. And my first vote was cast for President Ronald Reagan in 1980. And I was a Carter supporter because he was a born-again Christian. And then as the Carter presidency went forward, and I was a born-again Christian, he was a born-again Christian, I thought, oh, I'm really liking Jimmy Carter. And then he came out in full support of child killing. Full support of Roe versus Wade. And I remember watching him in a State of the Union address when I was in my teens and just having a shudder go over me. Like, no, how can you do this? You say you believe the Bible. You say that you're born again. How can you support the killing of babies? My mom and dad were Democrats. My grandparents were Democrats. Came from a total Democrat family, and I broke rank with all of them. And I registered as a Republican while I was a Bible school student, and I cast my first vote for Ronald Reagan. And I was excited to do it. I was excited about the Reagan presidency. I watched every State of the Union address. If there was a news conference and I could see it, I watched it. Then I voted for Bush the Elder in '88. And then I didn't do it with excitement. And I was thinking before we started shooting, I have not been excited about a presidential election once the nominee was picked since Reagan. I was excited about Alan Keyes, but he didn't win. I was excited about Pat Buchanan. Didn't win. I was disgusted by McCain. Disgusted by Romney. I was, kind of sort of enthusiastic a little bit about George W., the younger Bush. I have not been excited like this since Reagan. And here's why. Please hear me on this. I used to listen to Reagan's campaign speeches. City on a hill. We're going to fight communism. We're going to make America great again. We're going to rebuild our military. I felt patriotic. I felt confident. The country was in double-digit inflation under Carter. Things were a mess. If Donald Trump pulls off half of what he is talking about, just half, he builds half a wall. He bans half of the Muslims from coming in for the time being, temporary ban, till we can figure out a way to vet refugees that are ISIS terrorists. If he does 50% of what he's hoping to do with China with trade deals, if he puts good judges on the Supreme Court and picks from that list, if he makes it more friendly, just 50% more friendly for gun owners. I mean, come on, people. He said he's the only candidate in this election cycle that said he wants to make it a criminal act to kill an unborn baby. Are you hearing that? When's the last time you heard a Republican candidate for president say that he wants to make it a criminal act to kill an unborn baby? And that, by the way, is the pro-life position. So I'm excited. I admit it, I'm excited. And my excitement is beyond what Trump stands for. There's the excitement of a twofer. You got Trump, let's say he wins the presidency, but beyond that, we get a twofer. We get to bring just a hammer down on the Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama political machine. And we get to bring a hammer down, not as big a hammer, but a hammer down on the Speaker, Paul Ryan, and the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. In other words, the Republican establishment, and this is, my opinion, is studied, friends, all right? This is 20 years of political activism talking, or more. The Republican establishment has been a greater impediment, a greater problem to victory on pro-life, pro-family, conservative issues than have been the Democrats because of what the Republicans have failed to do and the treachery of the Republicans and the times they betrayed us and the times that they would not stand when they could stand. So with Trump winning the presidency, we get a twofer. We get to kneecap, politically speaking, the Democratic power structure, and we get to kneecap, politically speaking, the Republican power structure. After that, I'll have a Coke. Pepsi. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton's campaign for a moment. Hillary needs to pick a vice presidential running mate. She will not do this until after next week's Republican convention. And let me tell you how this is going to play out. The Clinton campaign is run by advisors, very smart advisors, people who are great at writing one-liners to deflect. If you've ever seen the TV show West Wing, there was a fellow named Bruno who worked for President Bartlett's reelection. They have probably a dozen Brunos, just brilliant political strategists who deflect, deceive, deny, who obfuscate, and they're good at it. They really are. But you can't do it forever. Now let me talk about two problems that Hillary has. She has a lot, but I want to talk about two. The second one I'll talk about is FBI Director Comey and his statement and what's happening with that. But let's first talk about who she has to pick from in the Democratic Party. Right now, Rasmussen has Donald Trump up 44-37. Let the full weight of that sink in on you, okay? Donald Trump in the Rasmussen poll, which, by the way, Rasmussen right now is at the very top of the food chain as far as respect because of their accuracy. And they spend a fortune on their polling. He's up 44-37. New York Times CBS poll has him in a dead heat at 40-40. All right, now the CBS and New York Times hate Donald Trump. And they're going to run their polling in such a way that it skews it. They don't have the respect that Rasmussen has. But even with their polling data, they're in a dead heat. Now, as I said yesterday, the national polls don't matter. They don't, friend. I'm sorry. The polling that matters are in the swing states. North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, you know the states, Colorado. Those are the states that matter. And Trump is jumping ahead and pulling away in those states. This is a crisis for Hillary. So part of what Hillary needs to do is she needs to pick a vice presidential running mate who energizes people. Now, I ask you, who's she got? Who's she have? Who does she have that just stimulates excitement? You had Bernie Sanders, who stimulated excitement for his base. If she wants to pull in the Bernie Sanders voters, probably the only way she can do it is if he's on the ticket. But do you see the problem? Now, that puts Hillary not leaning left, that puts her flying left, leaping left, plunging to the left on socialism, on gun control. Well, of course, Bernie is actually less restrictive with guns than she is, but she needs Bernie Sanders' base and doesn't want him as her running mate because he's 73 years old. And he's not a Trump 70. Trump feels younger than that. Bernie feels older than that. So, and I don't fault him for his age. I fault him for his politics. All right, so who does she have? Elizabeth Warren? Really? Who's that going to motivate? The Republican machine, think about the last 8 years. All right, you've had Barack Obama sucking all the oxygen out of the room for Democrats. And then you've had Republicans who most of them do nothing, but you have had a few, like Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. You've had Newt Gingrich. You've had different people that have really gone and established themselves as courageous, outspoken advocates of an anti-Obama agenda. And so what do you have on the left? What do you have with the Democrats? You have people like Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi cleaning up Obama's dung, okay, his refuse. That's what this has been. What Democrat superstar or even medium star has arisen over the last 8 years? Joe Biden? Think about it with me. Who do you think of when you think of, man, there's a stalwart, there's a heavy hitter, there's a person who's really got the goods for the Democratic Party? I'm drawing a blank here, friends. And that's what Hillary is looking to. That's the pool she's looking to pick her vice presidential candidate and to hopefully motivate and animate her voters. She's got a really shallow pool to pick from. And she and Barack Obama are partly to blame because they have not allowed young rising stars to come up on the left because they've taxed their party friends and infrastructure with cleaning up their garbage for the last 8 years. That's what they've all been doing. They've been garbage cleaner or garbage pickers, garbage men for Obama and Clinton. And now what? They're all worn out. They've got no superstars. They got no one young and fresh. Hillary is in deep trouble. When we come back, we'll talk about FBI Director Comey's the time release political toxin that he gave to Hillary when he didn't call for her to be indicted. If you just joined us, I'm Randall Terry. You're watching Voice of Resistance. Donald Trump is going to pick, or has picked, Mike Pence as his running mate. And this is great news for the Trump ticket. But I also want to say this, listen, it's great news for Newt Gingrich. Because Newt could be Secretary of State and help put together the coalitions needed to break the back of ISIS. Newt could become the Secretary of the Interior. Oh, I would love to see that. And to get the Keystone Pipeline built, to get ANWR in a position where we start drilling. All right, ANWR up in Alaska, the Alaska Northern Wildlife Refuge, the place where where some of the largest oil reserves in the world are sitting. We know how to drill and have animals be safe. We heard this with the Alaska pipeline. Do you remember that they said if we build the Alaska pipeline, it's going to hurt all of these animals? No, actually animals live better there now. And animals have survived because of the size of the pipe and the warmth. There are larger amounts of caribou and certain other mammals there than there were before the pipeline. So energy independence is critical for us. We have got to stop buying oil, any type of fuel, fossil fuels from Muslim countries. The end. And if we just start fracking, put in the pipeline, drill in ANWR, and just set out to be energy independent, and Newt Gingrich is at the tip of that spear, the Department of the Interior, oh, that's a happy, happy season for all of us who care about energy independence. Let's go back to Hillary. Hillary was given a time release toxin, politically speaking, by FBI Director Comey. If you listen to his 15-minute speech, I played the whole thing in its entirety on this show. You can go back in our archives and watch it. If you listen to what he said about her, and just don't listen to the one place where he says that he is not going to recommend an indictment, you would think he's setting her up to be indicted. He said, no one has reviewed this speech. Oh, I guarantee you no one reviewed this speech. Because if he had just said, we don't find sufficient evidence to indict, the end, man, that would have been the Democrat Party's 5-second, 8-second sound clip that they could run in ads. But instead, he provided, 8, 10 different clips that can be used by right-wing Republican pro-Trump people, saying that she was careless, saying that she in fact did traffic in classified emails, that she did in fact put national security at risk with this server in a basement somewhere, in a closet or wherever it was. I mean, this is a time release problem. The New York Times poll that shows Hillary and Trump dead even 67% of the people find Hillary untrustworthy, and the number keeps growing, okay? This email scandal, the non-indictment, is not good news for Hillary because of the way Comey couched it, because of the way he phrased it. So maybe he was afraid to be the guy who's going to offer to or suggest that Hillary Clinton be indicted. But maybe he thought, you know what? I know that Lynch isn't going to prosecute her anyway, so I'm just going to have a press conference, and I'm going to tell everybody what I know, and then let the chips fall where they may. It's a time-release political toxin, people, and it could spell the end of Hillary's dreams of becoming the next president.